Welcome back to the World Coin, the home of rare, legendary, and high-value coins from around the world. Every coin has a hidden story, and some of these small pieces of metal are worth hundreds, thousands, even millions of dollars today. From rare Lincoln wheat pennies and Washington quarters to era coins and historic collectibles, we uncover the most valuable treasures collectors are searching for right now. If you enjoy discovering old coins with unbelievable market value, amazing mint errors, and coin history that can change everything, then this channel is made for you. Here you will see rare finds, auction records, valuable coin details, grading secrets, and shocking prices that most people never imagine. So before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the World Coin, turn on the notification bell, and join us on this exciting journey through the world of valuable coins, because the next rare coin in your pocket could be worth a fortune. I have 3 videos of one dime. So let's get started. The 1979 Roosevelt Dime had a substantial mintage of 390,921,184 pieces. This large production figure means that the ordinary 1979 dime is not considered rare simply because it has the D mint mark. However, the surviving population becomes much more interesting when collectors look at exceptional grades and specialized characteristics. PCGS identifies the Denver issue as a copper-nickel-clad dime with a 75% copper and 25% nickel outer layer over a pure copper center. The obverse features the portrait of President Franklin D. Roosevelt, designed by John R. Sinek. Roosevelt faces left, and the inscriptions "Liberty, in God We Trust," and the date 1979 surround his portrait. The D mint mark appears near the lower left portion of the obverse, identifying Denver as the place of manufacture. The reverse displays the traditional Roosevelt dime design featuring a torch in the center, an olive branch on one side, and an oak branch on the other. The inscriptions "United States of America, 1 dime," and "E pluribus unum" complete the design. These symbols represent liberty, peace, strength, and the principles associated with American national identity. The 1979 dime measures approximately 17.90 millimeters in diameter and weighs about 2.27 grams. It has a reeded edge and the standard copper-nickel-clad construction used for circulating dimes of this period. These specifications are useful for collectors checking authenticity and investigating possible unusual planchet errors. In very fine condition, the 1979 Roosevelt dime shows clear evidence of circulation. Roosevelt's hair and facial details will have some smoothing, while the date and D mint mark should remain visible. On the reverse, the torch, olive branch, oak branch, and lettering should still be recognizable despite moderate wear. Very fine condition is important because it tells the story of an actual circulating American coin. This dime could have passed through countless transactions during the late 1970s and early 1980s, moving between banks, stores, cash registers, vending machines, and individual pockets before eventually becoming part of a collection. However, a standard very fine 1979 Roosevelt dime is not normally worth hundreds or thousands of dollars. Coin World currently lists the circulated 1979 clad dime at values close to its face value, with significantly higher prices appearing only as condition becomes exceptional. The official denomination of this coin is 10 cents. The United States government did not assign a $2 million value to the 1979 Roosevelt dime. Any collectible premium comes from the private numismatic market rather than from an official government valuation. The $2 million figure can be presented as a hypothetical extraordinary value for an exceptionally unusual specimen, but it should not be treated as the normal market price. For a coin to approach such an extraordinary valuation, it would need to possess an extremely rare and authenticated characteristic far beyond an ordinary circulated example. One of the most important characteristics to examine is the D mint mark. The D confirms that the dime was produced at Denver. Because hundreds of millions were struck, the presence of the D alone does not make the coin a $1 million rarity. Collectors should also examine the date carefully. The 1979 date should have natural, consistent lettering and should not show signs of alteration. When a coin is being presented as an extremely valuable rarity, authentication of the date and mint mark is essential. The portrait of Roosevelt deserves close examination as well. Collectors can inspect the hair, cheek, jawline, lettering, and surrounding fields for unusual doubling, dye damage, or other characteristics. A magnifying glass or coin loupe can reveal details that are difficult to see with the naked eye. The reverse should receive the same attention. The torch, flame, olive branch, oak branch, inscriptions, and rim can all be inspected for unusual characteristics. Strong details are particularly desirable in high-grade specimens. Surface preservation is one of the most important factors affecting the value of a modern dime. Scratches, stains, contact marks, corrosion, and cleaning can significantly reduce collector appeal. A coin with attractive original surfaces is much more desirable than an altered example. Collectors should never polish or chemically clean a potentially valuable 1979D dime. Cleaning can leave unnatural brightness and microscopic scratches across the surface. Professional collectors generally prefer original, undisturbed surfaces because they preserve the authentic appearance of the coin. One of the most interesting possibilities is a genuine mint error. Errors happen during the manufacturing process and can produce coins that are substantially different from normal examples. Depending on the type and severity, authenticated errors can attract strong premiums. An off-center strike is one of the most recognizable errors. It occurs when the planchette is not correctly centered between the dies. A dramatic off-center dime may have part of the design missing while a larger area of blank metal appears along one edge. A broad strike is another possible minting error. The collar normally helps control the shape of the coin during striking. If the collar fails to function correctly, the metal can spread outward, creating an unusually broad coin. Clipped planchettes are also collectible. A clip occurs when a blank is improperly punched from the metal strip before striking. Genuine clips can have distinctive curved or straight missing sections along the edge and may command premiums depending on their size and appearance. Struck-through errors occur when foreign material becomes trapped between a die and the planchette. The material can prevent part of the design from being transferred properly. A dramatic struck-through error can be very interesting to specialists when its mint-made origin is authenticated. Wrong planchette errors are particularly fascinating because they involve a coin being struck on a planchette intended for another denomination or composition. Specialists can compare weight, diameter, thickness, edge characteristics, and metal composition to investigate such claims. Die cracks and die breaks can also create collectible characteristics. Repeated pressure during coin production can cause a die to develop cracks. These cracks can appear as raised lines on the finished dime and become more interesting when they are distinctive or extensive. Doubled dies deserve careful attention as well. A genuine doubled die originates during die production and can create recognizable separation in portions of the design. Mechanical doubling, scratches, and post-mint damage can look similar, so careful comparison with recognized varieties is important. Another important characteristic of the 1979D Roosevelt dime is the full bands designation. Full bands refers to unusually complete separation and definition of the horizontal bands on the torch on the reverse. Collectors seeking high-grade Roosevelt dimes often pay close attention to this feature. PCGS recognizes the 1979D Roosevelt dime with a separate full bands variety designation. Its records show that the full bands version can attract substantial collector attention in high grades. PCGS lists an auction record of $850 for a 1979 DMS-66FB example sold in 2018. The regular 1979D Roosevelt dime has an even higher documented auction record. PCGS records an auction result of $1,495 for a specimen graded MS-64, sold by Heritage Auctions on September 1, 2008. This is an important real-world example of how a modern dime can achieve a substantial premium when an exceptional specimen reaches the certified market. This auction record does not mean every 1979D dime is worth $1,495. It represents a particular certified coin in a particular condition at a particular auction. A very fine circulated example is dramatically different from a professionally graded high-grade specimen. The difference between very fine and mint state is therefore extremely important. Very fine coins have visible circulation wear, while mint state coins have not experienced normal circulation wear. A high mint state grade can make a common date coin much more desirable because only a relatively small portion of surviving examples remain in exceptional condition. Collectors should also check the weight of their dime. PCGS lists the standard weight at approximately 2.27 grams. A significant deviation may justify further investigation, although weight alone does not prove a coin as a rare error because dirt, wear, damage, or alteration can affect measurements. The reeded edge should be inspected carefully as well. A normal Roosevelt dime has a reeded edge. Missing reeds, unusual edge metal, or other abnormalities can sometimes indicate a mint error, although post-mint damage can also produce unusual edges. The clad composition is another important identification feature. The 1979 D dime is not a regular silver Roosevelt dime. Its copper-nickel outer layers and copper core distinguish it from the silver Roosevelt dimes produced during the earlier years of the series. The historical importance of the Roosevelt dime adds another layer of interest. Franklin D. Roosevelt served as the 32nd President of the United States and played a major role in American history during the Great Depression and World War II. His portrait on the dime created a lasting connection between American currency and 20th-century presidential history. Roosevelt's association with the March of Dimes also made the dime especially appropriate as a memorial coin. The campaign had originally supported efforts against polio, a disease that affected Roosevelt personally. The Roosevelt dime became one of the most recognizable American coins connected with his legacy. The 1979 D issue represents the later clad period of the series. By this time, the United States Mint had moved away from using silver in ordinary circulating dimes. The clad composition allowed the Mint to continue producing large quantities of affordable circulating coins. The market evidence shows why collectors should be realistic about ordinary examples. Coin World lists the 1979 D clad dime at only modest values through circulated grades, while higher values appear for exceptional mint state pieces. At the same time, PCGS's auction records prove that exceptional coins can reach hundreds or even more than $1,000. The $1,495 MS64 record is particularly important because it demonstrates that condition and collector demand can create a significant premium even for a coin with a mintage exceeding 390 million. The phrase, hundreds to thousands of dollars, is therefore best used when discussing exceptional certified examples, full bands coins, or major authenticated mint errors. It should not be applied automatically to every very fine 1979 D dime. The $2 million figure should be treated as a hypothetical headline scenario. There is no evidence that an ordinary 1979 D Roosevelt dime in very fine condition is worth $2 million, and the United States government has not assigned such a value to the coin. A genuine multi-million-dollar result would require an extraordinary and independently authenticated discovery. Collectors should also understand the difference between an advertised price and a realized price. Anyone can list a common dime for an enormous amount online, but that does not prove a buyer has paid that amount. Completed auction records and reputable numismatic references provide much stronger evidence of actual market value. Professional grading can be useful when a 1979 D dime appears exceptionally preserved or appears to contain a significant error. A professional grading service can authenticate the coin, assign a condition grade, and document important characteristics. Certification does not guarantee a price, but it can increase confidence among serious buyers. If you discover a 1979 D Roosevelt dime, examine it carefully before spending or selling it. Confirm the D mint mark, inspect the date, study Roosevelt's portrait, examine the torch and bands, check the edge, measure the weight if necessary, and look for genuine mint-made abnormalities. The most exciting discoveries are usually not ordinary circulated coins but unusual individual specimens. A dramatic off-center strike, major wrong planchette error, substantial clipped planchette, important double die, or exceptionally preserved full bands example can be far more desirable than a normal circulated dime. The 1979 D Roosevelt dime therefore represents an excellent example of how coin collecting works. A coin can be common in general but scarce in exceptional condition. It can have a large mintage but still produce valuable individual specimens. And a coin worth only 10 cents in everyday commerce can become a much more interesting collectible when rarity and collector demand come together. Ultimately, the 1979 D Roosevelt dime is a historic piece of modern American coinage. Its Denver mint mark, Roosevelt portrait, classic torch reverse, clad composition, full bands potential, and possibility of genuine mint errors make it worthy of careful examination. A normal very fine example should not be represented as a guaranteed hundreds of thousands or $2 million coin. Its normal market value is much more modest. But exceptional certified examples have demonstrated real premiums, including the documented $1,495 PCGS auction record for an MS-64 specimen and the $850 record for an MS-66 full bands example. For collectors searching old coin jars, inherited collections, albums, bank rolls, or forgotten storage boxes, the 1979 Roosevelt dime remains worth examining. The real excitement is discovering whether an ordinary-looking 10-cent coin contains a rare mint error, an important variety, exceptional preservation, or full bands detail that separates it from millions of ordinary examples. The coin's official value remains 10 cents, but its collectible value can become much greater. When rarity, condition, authentication, and demand come together, that combination is what makes the 1979 Roosevelt dime an interesting chapter in American coin history and a worthwhile coin for careful collectors to study. Next up, the 2003 Roosevelt dime is an interesting modern United States coin struck at the Philadelphia Mint and identified by the P Mint mark. It belongs to the long-running Roosevelt dime series, which began in 1946 as a tribute to President Franklin D. Roosevelt. Although the 2003 P dime is a modern circulating coin produced in very large numbers, individual examples can become much more interesting when they show exceptional preservation, strong full bands detail, unusual die characteristics, or genuine mint errors. The 2003 P Roosevelt dime had a mintage of approximately 1,085,500,000 pieces. This enormous production figure means that the normal coin is common rather than rare. PCGS specifically describes the 2003 P Roosevelt dime as very common overall, with circulated examples readily available and greater scarcity appearing mainly in the highest mint state grades, particularly when the coin also receives the full bands designation. The obverse of the coin features the famous portrait of President Franklin D. Roosevelt, designed by John R. Sinek. Roosevelt faces left, while Liberty appears along the left side. In God We Trust appears near the lower left portion of the portrait, and the date 2003 appears near his neck. The P Mint mark identifies the Philadelphia Mint and is an important part of the coin's identification. The reverse of the 2003 P Roosevelt dime features the Torch of Liberty in the center. An olive branch appears on one side of the torch and an oak branch appears on the other. Around the design are the inscriptions United States of America, E Pluribus Unum, and One Dime. This classic design has remained one of the most recognizable small denomination designs in American coinage. The 2003 P Roosevelt dime measures approximately 17.90 millimeters in diameter and weighs about 2.27 grams. It has a reeded edge and is made from a copper-nickel clad composition consisting of 75% copper and 25% nickel over a pure copper center. These specifications are useful for collectors checking authenticity and investigating unusual planchet characteristics. In very fine condition, the 2003 P Roosevelt dime shows noticeable circulation wear while retaining the major elements of the design. Roosevelt's portrait remains clearly recognizable, the date and P Mint mark can be identified, and the reverse torch, branches, lettering, and rim remain visible. The surfaces may show small marks and areas of wear from years of handling. Very fine condition represents a genuinely circulated coin rather than an untouched mint state example. A dime in this condition may have passed through many transactions, stores, banks, vending machines, pockets, and cash registers. Its circulation history is part of what makes coin collecting fascinating because an ordinary-looking dime can preserve a small piece of American economic history. However, a standard 2003 P Roosevelt dime in very fine condition should not automatically be described as a coin worth hundreds or thousands of dollars. Modern examples were produced in enormous quantities. Price Charting's market data also shows relatively modest values for normal 2003 P examples, with premiums increasing as the grade becomes much higher. The official denomination of this coin is 10 cents. The United States government did not assign a $2 million value to the 2003 P Roosevelt dime. Any collectible premium above its 10-cent face value comes from the private numismatic market and depends on rarity, condition, demand, authentication, and the specific characteristics of an individual specimen. The $2 million figure can therefore be discussed as a hypothetical extraordinary valuation rather than the normal market value. For a 2003 P dime to approach such an extraordinary figure, it would have to possess an exceptionally rare and independently authenticated characteristic far beyond what is found on ordinary examples. The P mint mark is one of the first things collectors should verify. It confirms that the coin was struck at Philadelphia. Because more than 1 billion 2003 P dimes were produced, however, the P mint mark itself does not make the coin rare. Its importance is primarily in identifying the correct issue. The date 2003 should also be examined carefully. Collectors can use magnification to inspect the numerals for unusual doubling, die characteristics, or signs of alteration. A genuine mint variety must be distinguished from damage that occurred after the coin left the mint. Roosevelt's portrait provides another area for careful inspection. Collectors can examine the hair, forehead, cheek, jaw, lettering, and surrounding fields for unusual characteristics. Strong details and attractive surfaces become especially important when evaluating a coin for a high mint state grade. The reverse deserves equally careful attention. The torch, flame, horizontal bands, olive branch, oak branch, inscriptions, and rim should all be inspected. On Roosevelt Dimes, the horizontal bands across the torch can be especially important because coins with complete band separation may receive the full bands designation. Full bands is one of the most interesting condition-related characteristics of Roosevelt Dimes. A full bands coin has unusually complete and clearly separated horizontal lines across the torch on the reverse. Collectors often pursue these coins because strong band detail can be difficult to preserve at the highest grades. The 2003 P Roosevelt dime has a recognized full bands variety. PCGS lists the 2003 P10 CFB separately and notes that examples above MS68 become very difficult to find, particularly with the full bands designation. This demonstrates how a common modern coin can become significantly more challenging when collectors demand exceptional preservation and complete design detail. A documented PCGS auction record for the 2003 PMS68 full bands Roosevelt dime is approximately $210. The recorded sale occurred in July 2021. This is an important real-world example because it demonstrates that an exceptional certified example can sell for substantially more than face value even though the overall issue is common. The normal 2003 P Roosevelt dime also has documented high-grade auction results. PCGS lists an auction record of $173 for an MS66 example sold by Heritage Auctions in February 2005. This again demonstrates the importance of condition while also showing why a normal circulated example should not be confused with a top-quality certified coin. Surface quality is one of the most important factors collectors should examine. Contact marks, scratches, stains, discoloration, cleaning, and other imperfections can reduce the desirability of a coin. A high-grade modern dime must have remarkably clean and attractive surfaces to compete with other examples. Collectors should never polish or chemically clean a potentially valuable 2003 P Roosevelt dime. Cleaning can leave hairline scratches and unnatural surfaces that may reduce its collector value. Original surfaces are generally preferred because they preserve the authentic appearance of the coin. Mint errors are another major area of interest. A genuine mint error is created during the manufacturing process rather than after the coin enters circulation. Depending on its type, size, visibility, and rarity, an authenticated error can be considerably more desirable than a normal example. An off-center strike is one possible error collectors can search for. It occurs when the planchette is incorrectly positioned between the dies. A dramatic off-center dime may show a large blank area along one side while part of the normal design is missing on the opposite side. A broad strike is another possible mint error. Normally, the collar controls the expansion of the metal during striking. If the collar fails to contain the planchette correctly, the metal can spread outward and produce a coin with an unusually broad shape. Clipped planchettes are also fascinating errors. A clip occurs when the blank is improperly punched from the metal strip before striking. The resulting coin may have a curved or straight portion missing from the edge. Genuine clips have recognizable characteristics that specialists can use to distinguish them from ordinary damage. Struck-through errors can occur when foreign material becomes trapped between the die and the planchette. The material can prevent portions of the design from being transferred normally. Dramatic struck-through examples can attract error coin collectors when their mint-made origin is confirmed. Wrong planchette errors are among the most unusual possibilities. Such an error occurs when a coin is struck on a planchette intended for another denomination or composition. Weight, diameter, thickness, edge characteristics, and metal composition can all help specialists investigate a suspected wrong planchette Roosevelt dime. Die cracks and die breaks can also create collectible characteristics. A working die can develop cracks after repeated striking pressure. These cracks may appear as raised lines on the finished coin. Large and distinctive die breaks can attract collectors interested in die varieties and mint errors. Doubled dies deserve careful examination as well. Genuine doubled die characteristics originate during the creation of the die and can produce recognizable separation in portions of the design. Mechanical doubling and post-mint damage can look similar, so collectors should compare suspected varieties with reliable references before claiming a major discovery. Magnification is extremely useful when examining the 2003 P. Roosevelt dime. A quality coin loupe can help reveal small details in the P mint mark, date, lettering, torch bands, branches, portrait, and rim. Careful examination is often the first step in discovering whether an apparently ordinary coin deserves further investigation. The weight of the coin can also be checked. A normal 2003 P. Roosevelt dime weighs approximately 2.27 grams. A significant difference can justify additional research, although weight alone cannot prove an error because dirt, wear, damage, or alteration can also influence a measurement. The reeded edge should be inspected as well. A normal Roosevelt dime has a reeded edge. Missing reeds, unusual edge metal, or an abnormal edge can sometimes indicate a minting problem, but post-mint damage can also produce unusual edges, so authentication is important. The clad composition is another important feature. The 2003 P circulation dime is not a traditional 90% silver Roosevelt dime. It belongs to the copper-nickel clad era that began for ordinary circulating dimes in the 1960s. This distinction is important when evaluating claims about silver content. The historical importance of the Roosevelt dime goes back to 1946. The coin was created shortly after Franklin D. Roosevelt's death and was intended to honor his legacy. His association with the March of Dimes and the fight against polio made the dime an especially meaningful denomination for his memorial. John R. Sinek's design became one of the longest-running presidential coin designs in American history. The continued use of Roosevelt's portrait on the dime gives the 2003 P issue a direct connection with the original 1946 design and with decades of American monetary history. The 2003 P issue also represents an important period in modern United States mint production. The mint was producing enormous quantities of clad coins to meet everyday commerce requirements. The fact that more than 1 billion 2003 P Roosevelt dimes were produced explains why ordinary examples are easy to find while exceptional examples can still be challenging. The market evidence is especially useful for understanding the difference between ordinary and exceptional examples. Graysheet lists the 2003 P Roosevelt dime in a modest value range while noting that fold bands examples receive stronger collector attention. The catalog also emphasizes that fold bands Roosevelt dimes can command premiums over similarly graded coins without the designation. The phrase, hundreds to thousands of dollars, should therefore be reserved for exceptional certified coins or major authenticated errors rather than a normal very fine specimen. The documented $173 and $210 auction results demonstrate that high-grade examples can produce meaningful premiums, but they do not support a $2 million value for an ordinary circulated dime. The $2 million figure should be treated as a hypothetical extraordinary scenario. There is no official United States government valuation of $2 million for a normal 2003 P Roosevelt dime. The coin's official face value is 10 cents, and collectible value is determined by the private market. Collectors should also understand the difference between an asking price and a realized price. A seller can advertise a coin for an enormous amount, but that does not establish its actual market value. Completed auction results and reputable numismatic references provide much stronger evidence of what collectors have actually paid. Professional certification can be useful if a 2003 P Roosevelt dime appears exceptionally preserved or seems to contain a significant mint error. A recognized grading service can authenticate the coin, assign a standardized grade, and document important characteristics. Certification does not guarantee a selling price, but it can provide greater confidence to serious collectors. If you discover a 2003 P. Roosevelt dime, examine it carefully rather than immediately spending it. Confirm the date and P mint mark, inspect the portrait and reverse, study the torch bands, check the edge, examine the surfaces, and look for genuine mint-made abnormalities. The most exciting discoveries are usually individual coins with characteristics that separate them from the enormous population of ordinary examples. A dramatic off-center strike, major wrong planchet error, substantial clipped planchet, genuine double die, or exceptionally preserved full-band specimen can attract much more attention than a normal circulated dime. Ultimately, the 2003 P. Roosevelt dime is a fascinating example of modern American coin collecting. Its huge mintage makes the ordinary coin common, but the search for exceptional preservation, full bands detail, and genuine mint errors gives collectors a reason to examine even common coins carefully. The normal very fine 2003 P. Roosevelt dime is not a guaranteed hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars, or $2 million coin. Its ordinary value is much more modest. However, exceptional certified examples have demonstrated real premiums, including documented auction results of $173 for an MS-66 example and about $210 for an MS-68 full bands example. For collectors searching coin jars, old collections, inherited money, bank rolls, or forgotten storage boxes, the 2003 P. Roosevelt dime remains worth examining. The real excitement comes from discovering whether a particular specimen has extraordinary preservation, complete full bands, or an authentic mint error that makes it different from the hundreds of millions of ordinary pieces. The official value of the 2003 P. Roosevelt dime remains 10 cents, but its collectible value can rise when rarity, condition, authentication, and collector demand come together. That combination makes this small American dime an interesting piece of United States coin history and a worthwhile coin for careful collectors to study. Next up, the 1989 P. Roosevelt dime is an interesting piece of modern United States coinage struck at the Philadelphia Mint. The P mint mark identifies Philadelphia, and the coin belongs to the Roosevelt dime series that began in 1946. Although the 1989 P issue was produced in enormous numbers, exceptional examples can become much more desirable when they combine outstanding preservation, full bands detail, or genuine mint errors. The 1989 P. Roosevelt dime had a mintage of 1,298,400,000 pieces, making it a very common date in ordinary circulated condition. PCGS specifically notes that finding an example in circulation is fairly easy, while coins reaching very high grades with full bands become much more difficult to locate. The obverse carries the famous portrait of President Franklin D. Roosevelt, designed by John R. Sinek. Roosevelt faces left, with "Liberty, in God We Trust," and the date 1989 surrounding his portrait. The P mint mark identifies the Philadelphia Mint and is an important feature for correctly identifying this particular issue. The reverse presents the classic Roosevelt dime design. A torch stands at the center, accompanied by an olive branch and an oak branch. The inscriptions United States of America, E pluribus unum, and one dime complete the reverse and give the coin its familiar appearance. The 1989 P. Roosevelt dime measures approximately 17.90 millimeters in diameter and weighs about 2.27 grams. It has a reeded edge and uses a copper-nickel clad composition with a copper center. These physical characteristics are useful when checking an unusual coin for authenticity or investigating a possible mint error. In very fine condition, the 1989 P. Roosevelt dime shows clear circulation wear while retaining the major details of both sides. Roosevelt's portrait remains recognizable, the date and P mint mark remain visible, and the reverse torch and surrounding lettering can still be clearly identified. A very fine coin represents an actual circulated example rather than an untouched mint state specimen. It may have passed through banks, stores, vending machines, cash registers, and countless everyday transactions. For collectors, this circulation history gives even a common dime a connection to American economic life. However, a normal 1989 P dime in very fine condition should not automatically be considered a hundreds of thousands or $1 million coin. Current market references show ordinary circulated examples at modest values, while premiums become much stronger for exceptional certified pieces and full bands examples. The official denomination of the coin is 10 cents. The United States government did not establish a $2 million official value for the 1989 Roosevelt dime. Any collectible value above 10 cents comes from the private numismatic marketplace and depends on condition, rarity, demand, authentication, and special characteristics. The $2 million figure can be discussed as a hypothetical extraordinary valuation for a unique specimen, but it should not be presented as the normal value of an ordinary 1989 dime. A coin would need an extraordinarily rare and independently authenticated characteristic to justify a truly exceptional price. One of the first things a collector should check is the P mint mark. The letter P confirms Philadelphia production. Because more than 1.29 billion examples were struck, the P mint mark by itself does not make this coin rare. The date 1989 should also be examined closely. Collectors can use magnification to look for unusual doubling, die characteristics, or signs of alteration. Genuine varieties must be separated from ordinary circulation damage and mechanical doubling. Roosevelt's portrait deserves careful examination as well. The hair, forehead, cheek, jawline, lettering, and surrounding fields can reveal the amount of wear a coin has experienced. Strong, original details become increasingly important when evaluating a coin for a high grade. The reverse should receive the same attention. The torch, flame, horizontal bands, olive branch, oak branch, inscriptions, and rim should all be inspected. The torch bands are particularly important for collectors searching for full bands Roosevelt dimes. Full bands, often abbreviated FB, refers to strong and complete separation of the horizontal bands across the torch on the reverse. This feature can make a major difference in the desirability of a Roosevelt dime. Collectors specializing in high-grade Roosevelt dimes actively search for coins with complete, sharply defined bands. The 1989 Roosevelt dime has a recognized full bands variety. PCGS notes that ordinary examples are common but that MS67 full bands and higher examples are much harder to find, with grades above MS67 full bands considered very scarce. Graysheet also shows a significant difference between regular 1989 examples and full bands examples. Its listed range for the regular issue is approximately 10 cents to $50, while the 1989 full bands issue has a much wider range, reaching into the four-figure level for exceptional specimens. PCGS records an auction result of $1,998 for a 1989 full bands example graded MS61, sold by Heritage Auctions in June 2013. This demonstrates that an unusual market result can occur for a specially designated specimen, although an auction record does not mean every 1989 dime is worth thousands of dollars. PCGS also lists a $5,000 auction record for a 1989 regular strike dime, involving an NGC genuine example sold through eBay in July 2020. PCGS specifically warns that it is not responsible for the accuracy or authenticity of eBay listings, so this result should be treated cautiously rather than as a normal market benchmark. Surface quality is another major factor. Collectors should look for scratches, contact marks, stains, discoloration, corrosion, and evidence of cleaning. A high-grade modern dime needs attractive original surfaces because modern coins were produced in huge quantities and collectors can choose from many examples. Collectors should never polish or chemically clean a potentially valuable 1989 Roosevelt dime. Cleaning can leave microscopic scratches and unnatural surfaces that may reduce its desirability. Original surfaces are generally preferred by serious numismatists. Mint errors provide another exciting possibility. A genuine mint error occurs during production and can make an otherwise common coin substantially more interesting. Major errors are generally much more desirable than minor imperfections caused by circulation or handling. An off-center strike is one possible error. It occurs when the planchette is not correctly centered between the dies. A dramatic off-center dime can show a large blank area on one side while part of the design is missing on the opposite side. A broad strike is another potential mint error. The collar normally helps control the shape of the planchette during striking. If the collar does not properly contain the metal, the finished dime can spread outward and have an unusually broad appearance. Clipped planchettes are also collectible when genuine. A clip occurs when the blank is incorrectly punched from the metal strip before striking. The resulting coin can have a curved or straight section missing from its edge, and specialists can examine the characteristics to determine whether the clip occurred at the mint. Struck-through errors occur when foreign material becomes trapped between a die and the planchette during striking. The material can prevent portions of the design from being transferred normally. Dramatic struck-through errors can attract strong collector attention when professionally authenticated. Wrong planchette errors are among the most fascinating possibilities. These occur when a coin is struck on a planchette intended for another denomination or composition. Weight, diameter, thickness, edge characteristics, and metal composition can help specialists investigate such a discovery. Die cracks and die breaks can also create collectible characteristics. Repeated striking pressure can eventually damage a working die. A crack on the die can appear as a raised line on the finished coin, while a larger die break can create a more dramatic raised area. Doubled dies are another category that collectors can investigate. Genuine doubled die characteristics originate during die production and can produce recognizable separation on parts of the design. Mechanical doubling, scratches, and wear can look similar, so careful comparison with trusted references is essential. Magnification is extremely helpful when examining the 1989 P. Roosevelt dime. A good loupe can reveal details in the date, P. mint mark, portrait, lettering, torch bands, branches, and rim that may be difficult to see with the naked eye. The coin's weight can also be checked. A standard 1989 P. Roosevelt dime weighs approximately 2.27 grams. A significant difference may justify further examination, although weight alone cannot prove an error because dirt, wear, damage, or alteration can also affect measurements. The reeded edge should also be inspected. Missing reeds, unusual edge characteristics, or abnormal metal may deserve investigation, but collectors should remember that post-mint damage can also change the appearance of an edge. The clad composition is another important feature. The 1989 P dime is a copper-nickel clad issue rather than a traditional 90% silver Roosevelt dime. Collectors should therefore be cautious about claims that every Roosevelt dime is made from silver. The historical importance of the Roosevelt dime begins with its introduction in 1946. The coin was created to honor Franklin D. Roosevelt shortly after his death in 1945. His connection with the March of Dimes and the fight against polio made the dime a particularly meaningful denomination for his memorial. The 1989 P issue represents the modern clad era of the Roosevelt dime series. By this period, the mint had been producing copper-nickel clad dimes for decades. The coin therefore reflects the transition from America's earlier silver circulating coinage to modern clad coinage. The enormous mintage also tells an important story. More than 1.298 billion 1989 P dimes were struck, meaning the date itself is readily available. The real challenge is finding an example with exceptional preservation and complete torch bands. This is why a very fine 1989 P dime and a top-grade full bands example can have dramatically different market positions. The very fine coin has circulation wear, while the finest mint state examples must preserve unusually clean surfaces and strong design details. Market guides provide another useful perspective. Numista's listed CPG prices for the regular 1989 P issue range from about 20 cents in circulated grades to higher amounts in top mint state grades, while the full bands category reaches much higher levels for exceptional pieces. The phrase, hundreds to thousands of dollars, therefore makes the most sense when discussing exceptional certified examples, full band specimens, or major authenticated errors. It should not be used to suggest that every 1989 P dime in very fine condition has such a value. The $2 million figure should be treated as a hypothetical extraordinary scenario rather than a guaranteed market price. There is no official government valuation of $2 million for this coin, and an ordinary circulated 1989 P dime is not a multi-million-dollar coin. Collectors should also distinguish between asking prices and realized prices. A seller can list a coin for an enormous amount, but a listing does not prove that a buyer has paid that amount. Completed sales and reputable auction records are much stronger evidence of market value. Professional authentication becomes especially important when a coin appears to have a major error or extraordinary variety. A grading service can verify authenticity, determine condition, and document recognized characteristics. Certification cannot guarantee a particular selling price, but it can give serious buyers greater confidence. If you discover a 1989 P. Roosevelt dime, examine it carefully before spending it. Confirm the date and P mint mark, study Roosevelt's portrait, inspect the reverse torch, examine the bands, check the edge, and look for genuine mint-made abnormalities. The most exciting discovery would be a coin that combines several desirable characteristics: exceptional preservation, strong luster, sharp strike quality, complete full bands, and perhaps an authenticated mint error. Such a coin would be dramatically different from an ordinary circulated dime. Ultimately, the 1989 P. Roosevelt dime is an excellent example of why coin collecting requires careful observation. More than 1 billion were struck, so the ordinary coin is common, but exceptional examples can become much more desirable. The combination of grade, full bands detail, errors, authentication, and collector demand determines the real collectible value. The official value remains 10 cents, but the private market can place substantially higher values on exceptional specimens. Documented market records show that unusual 1989 P examples can reach hundreds or even thousands of dollars, while ordinary very fine examples remain modestly valued. For collectors searching coin jars, inherited collections, old albums, bank rolls, or forgotten boxes, the 1989 P. Roosevelt dime is still worth examining. The excitement is not that every coin is worth a fortune, but that one unusual specimen can be different from millions of ordinary examples. The 1989 P. Roosevelt dime combines presidential history, modern American coin manufacturing, the Philadelphia Mint, copper-nickel-clad composition, and the specialized world of full bands collecting. Its ordinary form is common, but exceptional preservation and genuine mint-made characteristics can create a much more valuable collectible. The most responsible conclusion is that a standard 1989 P. Roosevelt dime in very fine condition should not be advertised as automatically worth $2 million. Instead, collectors should examine it for the characteristics that genuinely create value. A rare error, extraordinary grade, or exceptional full bands designation can make the difference between an ordinary 10-cent coin and a highly desirable numismatic specimen. So please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. A new coin story awaits you every next video.